Joining me now is NSTA Executive Director David Evans. Mr. Evans, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
This is a position that you've held for what, the last 4 years?
That's right, just a little over 4 years now, that's correct.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about STEM education. How important is STEM education in your opinion?
You know, I don't think, it's hard for me to actually state how important it is. And I say that really for two reasons. So first is the one that everybody talks about. That's where the jobs are. That's where the jobs of the future are. I was talking to an aerospace executive the other day who's just won a big contract. And they need to hire 20,000 engineers to fulfill the contract, and they don't have any idea where they're going to get them, anywhere in the world. So the jobs case is easy, and people can relate to that. But I think there's another side to it as well. And the other side is STEM education, knowing about science, understanding how science helps us understand the world we live in, is important for everyone in order to be a good citizen these days. If you want to be informed and make decisions as a part of our society, you have to know basically how science works.
Yeah. Now, I know your background deals a lot with climate change, oceanography. How do you, as an educator, how should educators, how do they teach climate change in such a tenuous political environment? You know, you have a lot of climate change deniers out there. How do you guys deal with that?
Well, first off, we have to be clear that there isn't any controversy or real question in the science community about climate change. It's an observed phenomenon, it's taking place. From a science point of view, the basic science was worked out well over 100 years ago, including forecasts of the changes in temperatures that we would see if CO2 in the atmosphere went up. The numbers that were calculated theoretically 115 years ago are pretty close to what we're actually measuring right now. So the science is really not controversial. What's controversial is what we want to do with that science. And we've run into these conflicts before. I'd mention evolution, for example. Science around evolution is well established. Teachers teach it because the job of a science teacher is to teach children science, to help them understand the world that way. What we do with that understanding, how we use it in our lives and in our social interactions, is a separate question. So we encourage teachers to stick to the science, teach what's there, help the children understand that, and then they'll be better citizens, if not scientists themselves.
What is NSTA doing to push STEM education?
Well, we publish books. If you take a look at the conference that we're at right now, we have 10 or 12,000 scientists here, teachers here, who are all engaged in some aspect of STEM education. It might be just the S part, just the science part, but actually many of the teachers and many of the programs actually integrate all four, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics part. NSTA holds a separate conference in the summertime called the STEM Forum that specifically focuses on that those integrated programs. So we work closely with industry, we work with school districts, and we help teachers in their endeavor to teach STEM subjects.
Yeah, and you talked a short time ago about having to fill, for example, 20,000 jobs and not knowing where those folks are coming from. I know you guys are working really hard, as you just said, to push STEM education,
right.
But you guys have a long way to go though as well, right?
There's a very long way to go. You know, I think from the job point of view, there's actually pretty good support. We see good support from the commercial sector. Those companies that need to hire people realize that the only way they're going to be able to fill their employment ranks is if they have a pipeline of well-educated kids coming through. And so you'll find most of the major corporate players in Silicon Valley or in manufacturing, in aerospace, a lot of those industries are strong supporters. So their support comes to NSTA to help us. There's support that they provide to schools and programs for children. So I think there's a good sense of that in the education community and in the corporate community. There are problems in other areas.
Yeah. With that being said, what is your long-term goal? I mean, you know, what's great, I think, is we have computers, we have 5-year-olds now learning to code, so I think we seem to be moving in a positive direction, but what is your ultimate goal? Where do you see STEM education in maybe 10 or 20 years?
Well, that's a great question, actually. 10 or 20 years seems like forever in the world that we live in, when you realize that the iPhone is only 10 years old.
Right.
And so 11 years ago, to say this is what we're going to be doing in that part of technology would have been a real guess. But putting that aside, I see a STEM educated workforce, and maybe more importantly, I see a STEM educated population. that on the one hand can be educated consumers of those products that are coming out, and on the other understand the way the physical world works in a way that helps them be good citizens. So in the NSTA mission statement, the last two words in our mission statement are "for all." So we support science education, science learning and teaching for everyone, not just for those engineers, not just for the next generation of Nobel laureates, but for everybody. And I'm very hopeful that we're making progress on that front.
Absolutely. We'll leave it at that. What a great message. David Evans, NSTA Executive Director, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.